all was well in the land of the ancients and the remnants, until one day the gods put out a new decree that from now on, settlement rights would only be granted to those who could gather 9 friends in one place. A general sadness fell over Caligo, and there was much weeping and gnashing of teeth, until one day a middle-aged man walked up the steps to the temple and nailed his thesis onto the temple door. In the new Anvil build, the requirement to start a town, or anything rather, is for 10 people to be in each other's vicinity. Only then can a gathering pit and therefore a town be founded. This preliminary system was implemented with the stated goal of to motivate players to build larger towns instead of making a lot of small ones that end up getting abandoned. And the reasoning for this was, current players are used to the paradigm of a town being the core of their personal area. That paradigm needs to shift more to homesteads over time. Even as a self-professed solo/small random group player, I do agree with the stated goal of getting more bigger towns and less single-person towns. But the current requirement of having 10 people in the vicinity to start a town seems too restrictive. Right now, unless you join a town, you can do nothing. Sure, you can gather berries and make some bloodberry field bars, you can start a fire pit and a camp, but that's about it. Anything else is impossible. I'd like to propose a different system that would allow for a bit more individual choice, but might still convince people to join a bigger town. Now, this is not a foolproof idea. There will be corner cases I don't think about and technical limitations that maybe prevent the implementation of a system like I propose. But nonetheless, I at least like to put it out there, and if nothing else, to use it as a platform to build upon new ideas or as an inspiration for different ideas by other people. The idea at a higher level. With this idea, I aim to allow for solo players to still be able to play solo or in small groups if they want, and not only get some crumbs to keep them happy. At the same time, it hopefully will encourage the forming of bigger towns and not have a single player towns all over the place. So, homesteads are for solo players or small groups and provide a very limited building space, and not all technologies are available to them. Towns are for large groups and/or clans and provide a lot of building space and access to more advanced technologies. As a counterweight to this, towns will attract dangerous animals like wolves like they do now, but they will also prohibit the spawning of wildlife and wild plants in a radius around them. The idea behind this is that small homesteads have something to offer towns, namely game meat and wild plant seeds and leather, and that towns have something to offer homesteads, better tools and gear. Both townsfolk and homesteaders can still rally behind the flag at camps and fight the opposing faction together. When starting out, each player has the ability to start their own homestead by placing a homestead marker in their desired location, as long as it is not inside the footprint of another homestead or inside the footprint of a town. This homestead marker will provide a limited amount of space, enough area for a standard house and some farm fields. Having a homestead will allow players to build basic production buildings like a workbench, farm fields, a sawbuck, hearth, and a grind mill. The workbench allows players to make tools like a pickaxes, axes, hoes, scythes, spears, and hammers, all made of flint and all being very flimsy and with low durability. Grind mill allows for the milling of flour and chicken feed. The homestead can accept multiple people into it, just as is the case now, each of which needs to have their own bed. For anything advanced like workshops, automated sawbucks, smithing buildings, carts, windmills, power wheels, aqueducts, stables, and armor, a town is required. The same goes for walls, fortress walls, and any weapon beyond the flint spear. To make a town, several homesteaders, where a homesteader is the owner of a homestead with at least a house and one bed, need to vote a single homestead into a town. When enough votes are cast on a single homestead, this homestead will become a town, and all the inhabitants of the voting homesteads will be pledged to the newly formed town. Homesteaders that represent a homestead with multiple people will represent that amount of votes. So, the owner of a homestead with 3 inhabitants will in essence cast 3 votes at once. All homesteads that voted for a town will decay over the next 24 hours as soon as the town is formed, without the ability of repair or decay prevention. This decay/demolition cannot be immediate because players might be offline while the final vote for a town has been cast, and this period allows them to retrieve stored items from their homesteads. All pledged people will have to build new houses and beds within the footprint of the newly formed town. The owner of the homestead that became the town will be the founder, and other people can be voted in as Thane, just as it is right now. New people can join the town by joining the homestead that became the town. All inhabitants of the town will be part of the same homestead. Upon creation, a town will disallow the formation of new towns and homesteads in a radius around it, and will remove wild spawns in its vicinity as well. This is, by the way, where we hit the first snag. What if somebody has a homestead within the town's radius but did not vote for that town? If you have any ideas, let me know. As stated earlier, it is the town that allows for more advanced gameplay things like smithing for better tools, having an oven for better food, the possibility to make weapons and armor, and the ability to make walls and fortresses. Some things to consider. What happens if people leave a town to join a new homestead or a different town? Should that town lose its town status when it has less inhabitants than the amount of votes that is needed to make it a town? Do all people inside a town get build permission? And if they do, how do we deal with buildings that are placed in a place where we don't want them? Do all people inside a town get permission to access building inventories? And how do we prevent people from just borrowing everything for an indeterminate amount of time? Aka stealing. How do people that do not live in a town sell their wares to get the silver needed to buy better gear at towns?